Before I will start, I would like to greet first our professor a Merry Christmas and advance Happy New Year. Let me start by answering the definition of easement. Easement is an encumbrance imposed upon an immovable for the benefit of another immovable belonging to a different owner, or for the benefits of a community or one or more persons to whom the encumbered estate does not belong, by virtue of which the owner is obliged to abstain from doing or to permit a certain thing to be done on his estate in pursuant to Articles 613 and 614. In other words, an easement is a real right constituted on another's property, which must be corporeal and immovable, and the owner of such will be abstained from doing or allowing another person to do something on his property for another thing or person's benefit. The following are the requisites for the easement. 1. The property is surrounded by estates of others and there is no adequate outlet to a public highway. Number 2. It must be established at the point least prejudicial to the servient estate, and insofar as consistent with this rule, where the distance from the dominant estate to a public highway may be the shortest. Number 3. There must be payment of the proper indemnity. And number 4, the isolation should not be due to the proprietor's own acts. The definition of servitude is it is a right of some benefit or beneficial use out of, in, or over the land of another. Or in other words, it is the registered right of a person over the immovable property of another. However, it allows the holder of the servitude to do something with the other person's property, which may infringe upon the rights of the owner of that property. An example is the right of way to travel over a section of the other person's property in order to reach your own property. The following are the distinction between easement and servitude. When we say easement, it is an English law term. When we say servitude, it is used in civil law countries. An easement or easement, it pertains to real. And when we say servitude, it is real or personal property. It pertains to the right enjoyed as to easement and burden imposed upon another as to servitude. The following are the characteristics of an easement. 1. A right limited by the needs of the dominant owner or estate without possession. 2. Inseparable from the estate to which it is attached. It is or it cannot be alienated independently of the estate. In the case of Solid Manila Corporation versus Hong Trading Corporation, the Supreme Court held that an alley which was created as a right-of-way was included in the sale of a parcel of land on which the alley was created. The Supreme Court explained that it is true that the sale did include the alley. On this score, the court rejects the SMC's contention that the deed of sale excluded it, because as a mere right of way it cannot be separated from the tenement and maintain an independent existence. Okay, so let's move on with number 3. It cannot consist in the doing of an act unless the act is accessory in relation to a real easement. Number 4. Easement involves two neighboring estates, the dominant estate to which the right belongs and the servient estates upon which an obligation rests. Number 5. A limitation on the servient owner's rights of ownership. Number 6. Indivisible. So here it is not affected by the division of the estates between two or more persons. Number 7, it is enjoyed over another immovable, never on one's own property. And 8, a real right but will affect third persons only when registered. The following are the kinds of easements. Easements are classified as follows. 1. As to the recipient of the benefit, it is either real or personal. Number 2. As to its source, it is either legal or voluntary. In case of legal easements, it is either public legal easement or private legal easement. As to its exercise, it is either continuous or discontinuous, apparent or non-apparent, and positive or negative. Real easement or servitude, it is an encumbrance imposed upon an immovable for the benefit of another immovable belonging to a different owner. Personal easement or servitude, the easement is in favor of a community or of one or more persons to whom the encumbered estate does not belong. Example, easement of right of way for passage of livestock. The distinction between real or personal easement. In real easement, it is the easement that is in favor of another immovable, while personal easement, it is the easement that is in favor of a community or of one or more persons to whom the encumbered estate does not belong. Example, the easement of right of way for passage of livestock. Another distinction is that in real easement, it requires two distinct immovable belonging to different owners to which it relates, while in personal servitude, the person whose in favor the easement is constituted need not to be the owner of any estate and does not require a dominant estate, because the person in whose favor the easement is constituted need not to be the proper property owner. The following are the sources of the following are the legal source or the following are the sources of easement. Number 1, legal easement and voluntary easement. Under legal easement and voluntary easement, it is said to be legal when those created by law for public use or private interest, and it is said to be voluntary easement when it is constituted by will or agreement of the parties or by testator. Next is that mm, another sources of easement is continuous and discontinuous easement. Continuous easement, their use may or may not be incessant without the intervention of any act of man. Example, easement of drainage. And when we say discontinuous, this easement is used at intervals and depend upon the acts of man. Example, easement of right of way. Next sources is the apparent and non-apparent. When we say apparent, made known and continually kept in view by external signs that reveal the use and enjoyment of the same. And non-apparent, they show no external indication of their existence. They show no external indication of their existence. Another sources is positive and negative easement. Positive, when it imposes upon the owner of the servient estate the obligation of allowing something to be done or doing it himself. And negative, when it prohibits the owner of the servient estate from doing something which he could lawfully do if the easement did not exist. The following are the modes of acquiring easement. Number 1, by title. Number 2, by prescription of 10 years. Number 3, by deed of recognition. Number 4, by final judgment. And number 5, by apparent sign established by the owner of the two adjoining estates. When we say acquisition by title, in acquisition by title, the law refers to the juridical act which gives birth to the servitude, such as the law, donations, contracts, and wills. Hence, the act may either be inter vivos or mortis causa, may be onerous or gratuitous. All kinds of easements may be acquired by title. When we say acquisition by prescription, in this case, continuous and apparent easements may be acquired by virtue of prescription, or it means that an easement must be both continuous and apparent for it to be acquired by virtue of prescription. Next is the rights and obligations of owners of the dominant and servient estates. As to the general rights, these are the following. Number one, make on the servient estate all works necessary for the use and preservation of the servitude. The right to ask for Number two, the right to ask for mandatory injunction to prevent the impairment of his right. Number three, the right to renounce the easement if he desires to be exempt from contributing necessary expenses. Number four, the right to exercise all rights necessary for the use of the easement. Let's now move to the obligations of the dominant owner. As to his obligation, these are the following. 1. The dominant owner cannot exercise the easement in any other manner than that previously established in pursuant to Article 626. The dominant owner, number 2, cannot alter the easement or render it more burdensome in pursuant to Article 627. And number 3, the dominant owner shall notify the servient owner of works necessary for the use and preservation of the servitude in pursuant to Article 627, paragraph 2. Number 4. The dominant owner must choose the most convenient time and manner of making the necessary works as to cause the least inconvenience to the servient owner. Number 5. The dominant owner, if there are several dominant estates, he must contribute to the necessary expenses in proportion to the benefits derived from the work. And number 6, the dominant owner may make at his own expense on the servient estate any works necessary for the use of servitude, provided it will not alter or make it more burdensome. As to the rights of the servient owner, these are the following rights of the servient owner. The servient owner retain the ownership of the proportion of the estate on which easement is imposed. Number 2, the servient owner make use of the easement unless there is an agreement to the contrary. And number 3, the servient owner may change the place or manner of the use of the easement, provided it be equally convenient. The obligations of the servient's owner. The following are the obligation of the servient owner. The servient owner cannot impair the use of the easement except when the easement has become very inconvenient to the said servient owner, and if it prevents him from making any important works, repairs, or improvements thereon. Number 2, servient owner